How would you like to become a new type of human? And I'm not talking about like a robot human, right? Or a transhuman or some kind of human that's got all these different parts and pieces that are mechanical, right? That's not the kind of human I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of human being that has the capacity and the capability to grow a new organ naturally or to even grow a new body naturally. Welcome to Andrea Beeman Speaks Out. This is where you get access to uncensored, holistic, and alternative healing wisdom to support your body, mind, and spirit and help you live a happier and more vibrant life while you're living on planet Earth in a perfectly designed human body. And you get it all without any bullcrap or nonsense. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new year. This is a very exciting time to be a human being on planet Earth. I know that there's a lot of crazy crap going on and there's all this ridiculous drama happening all over the place, but you don't need to give your energy to any of that nonsense because there's also some amazing stuff happening in the world. For example, how would you like to become a new type of human? And I'm not talking about like a robot human, right? Or a transhuman or some kind of human that's got all these different parts and pieces that are mechanical, right? That's not the kind of human I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of human being that has the capacity and the capability to grow a new organ naturally or to even grow a new body naturally. Sounds too good to be true, right? It's not. Today, with the help of my guest, we're going to show you how to turn adversity into opportunity using ancient teachings. One of my favorite subjects. I mean, I love all the subjects that I bring you guys, but this is one of my favorites. So I want you to stick with us to the end, listen to this full interview, and then I want to hear your thoughts about it, on whether you think you can grow a new organ or a new body or be a whole different type of human being living on planet Earth right now. So without further ado, I give you the wisdom of Alberto Villoldo.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. Great to be with you. And this is one of my favorite topics, how to be healthy, stay healthy, create health, so we don't have to treat disease.
Oh, I love that. I think that that's the Western model, is to treat disease rather than focus on health.
Yeah, precisely. Well, you know, in America, we don't have a healthcare system. We have a disease care system, a sick care system. And so doctors learn about illnesses. They don't learn about nutrition. They don't learn about health. And what's happened in the last century is that human lifespan has been extended tremendously, but human health span has remained the same. So what we've extended have been those years of morbidity, of being in a wheelchair, of being fed by a tube, of being, so this is a big problem. We're not talking about health. We're talking about getting sicker and sicker every year.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, what you just described is it's a great way to keep a system running and drawing and draining money and reserves and all that stuff, but it doesn't actually create a healthy population of people. It creates disease and it perpetuates that disease. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So the first is, like, you trained as an anthropologist initially, is that correct?
That's right, yeah.
So what inspired you and your work to get beyond the laboratory setting, right, and get out into the world to study ancient healing practices with ancient people?
You know, I studied psychology and anthropology, and I really was fascinated by the human mind and how the mind can create health, can heal us, or can kill us. And I noticed that our educational system, and when I was a graduate student, I was working with Head Start schools for underprivileged children. And these were children that were really suffering tremendously, but we were trying to mainstream them into an educational system that really creates systematic mental retardation in everybody. So that it begins with our education. We're being educated to be turned into machines and into consumers, and we're in the hands of the food companies and medical and pharmaceuticals from birth to grave. So this is a problem. You know, we're living in a society that is so profit driven and so turning us into consumers of products designed based on fear. And that's a real serious, much bigger problem than what we are dealing with when somebody gets sick, because it's a systemic, it's a whole system that's pretty spoiled.
Yeah, I agree. And that makes me think about, well, what is missing, right? So something is missing from modern medicine, or at least the Western idea of modern medicine. Something is missing from that model that the ancient healers knew or understood, and that the shamans and the energy workers know. And is it just the monetary aspect that, they're so focused on the money that they lose sight of the human being? What do you think it is?
Well, as an anthropologist, I spent years in the Amazon and in the Andes Mountains working with medicine men and women whose wisdom went back 5,000 years. Modern medicine is really new. It's a brand new science, and it really got shaped by the discovery of Louis Pasteur, of germs, and germ theory became the basis of modern medicine. Pasteur discovered that basically parasites and germs make us sick, and that's why we pasteurize milk and the like. Well, everything in modern medicine, in Western medicine, is anti. Have you noticed how many anti things we have, from antibiotics to antihistamines to anti everything? The only thing pro that I know of is probiotics, but everything else is anti. And we've been struggling to kill off the germs. And if you look at the scoreboard, it's germs 1, humans 0. They're winning because they've been here much longer than we have. Bacteria, you cannot sterilize and sanitize. We have to befriend and collaborate with in the same way that we collaborate with the bacteria in our guts. But Western medicine and antibiotic medicine has been trying to wipe out the bad guys, and it's in the process killing us.
And even probiotics, what you'd mentioned, even that is foreign territory for many Western trained doctors. The idea of a probiotic or a prebiotic, they definitely live on the anti side of things.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, it's not only the prebiotics and the probiotics, but even more important are the postbiotics, which is that if you live in right relationship with the environment and with your bacteria in your gut, and we're surrounded by bacteria, we're a colony organism, really. If you take an empty syringe and you fill it with air about a foot away from a person, and then you put that into a petri dish, the air, it'll be colonized by bacteria in 3 days. Because we have an aura, a human aura, that's made out of light, but our bacteria surround our aura, our field, our body 3 feet out. So we are a colony organism, and these bacteria interact with the environment and with the food, and they are the ones that turn chicken or broccoli into you. And that's a big project. And they also manufacture medicines. So this is what I mean when I talk about postbiotics. They're not just breaking down proteins into amino acids so you can build muscle tissue, or breaking down broccoli into the nutrients, the minerals, and the vitamins that we need. They're actually creating medicine to keep the colony healthy. They make their own medicine, and if we have a healthy colony, then we become healthy. So for the shamans, everything begins with your gut and with your environment. And they understand that as the fate of the earth goes, so goes our fate. As the fate of our environment goes, so goes our health. And you create a healthy environment at home. You look at the products that you buy, make sure that you're not taking part in a carcinogenic experiment that's humanity's been an involuntary participant in for the last 50 years, from GMO foods to glyphosates to the cleaning products that we use. And so how do you maintain a really healthy, natural environment in your home, in your cleaning products, in your what you wear, so that you can create health and not have to be dealing with treatment. Treatment is very complicated. And as an example, we know how to prevent dementia. We know how to prevent Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, but we cannot treat it. There's no treatment for it. But we know how to prevent it with what you eat, with how you exercise, with how you forgive, with the omega-3 fatty acids, with DHA. If you consume 2 grams of omega-3s daily, your risk for Alzheimer's goes down by 75%. Incredible. But you don't hear about this in the drugstores.
No, and it's not on the front page of the main newspapers, and it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that leads me to believe that humans are suffering at every age of some form of dementia where they are disconnected from the human experience, from being a human, right? That it's almost like they're forgetting what it's like to be a human. And that's one of the reasons why I like your work, because when you connect people back to the ancient traditions and the ancient wisdom, you're bringing that back. You're bringing back the remembrance of what it means to be a human living on planet Earth.
Yeah, it's a good thing to remember. Absolutely essential. You don't want to forget that, because otherwise you're living in planet hyperspace, or in planet internet, or in planet fantasy land that you create. But see, if you look at our mythology, to me, healing has to do with an experience of the sacred. Once you have an experience of the sacred, the body's natural healing systems are uninhibited, and healing happens very rapidly. But we're the only people in the planet who were ever kicked out of the Garden of Eden. We were cast out of the garden. Nobody else on the planet was kicked out of nature. The Aborigines weren't, the Sub-Saharan Africans, the Native Americans. They were given the garden to be the stewards and the caretakers of the garden, not to loot and pillage the garden like we've continued doing for the last 2,000 years. So we need to make our way back to nature. This is absolutely essential, and become natural beings again. And eat natural foods, not processed foods, and heal directly through nature, through the medicines your gut makes, and through the medicine that's in your food. Your kitchen should be your laboratory.
I agree.
We should be fermenting our foods and restoring our flora. But of course, we're the first generation alive ever that doesn't know where our food or our water comes from.
Yeah. I remember going to see the 13 indigenous grandmothers. I saw them about 10 years ago. And the elder I think she was from Oregon, the elder said that when she was a little girl, and she was already in her 90s, she said when she was a little girl, her grandfather took her into the woods and pointed to the river and said, one day, so this had to be back in the 1800s, he said, one day, you're going to have to know your food and know your water. He says, today you can eat from the streams, and you could eat from the plants, and you could enjoy the bounties of the earth. He goes, but one day you're going to have to know your food and know your water. And that was wisdom, because what we're doing to the planet, we're making it uninhabitable for human beings on every level by depleting the topsoil, polluting the rivers, the air, everything. When I look around, I'm really surprised that we've come this far. And I'm really happy that there are people like you still on the planet at this time that are sharing ancient wisdom, trying to bring people back.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a time for the ancient wisdom. This is the time, because we have amazing technology. But technology is information. It's not wisdom. Information is knowing water is H2O. Wisdom is being able to make it rain. And information is having a diagnosis, and wisdom is being able to heal. But we're trying to fix the body when the body doesn't need fixing. What needs fixing is our belief systems, it's our mindset. And then the body repairs itself. And this is what shamanic medicine is about. Shamans understand that we are energy beings, and all medicine is energy medicine. Whether it be the energy that we get from foods or the energy that our mitochondria produce. And, in mitochondria, I know that you write and speak about mitochondria. They're the energy factories inside every cell. And they're in charge of producing energy, but they're also in charge of regulating the death clock. They tell cells when they need to die. And if the mitochondria are not functioning properly, cells don't know that they need to die, and we call that cancer. But if you repair the mitochondria, which, by the way, are bacteria that have moved into every one of our cells, they have their own DNA, which is 28 genes in a ring, typical bacterial DNA. And if you can restore the energy function in the cell, the mitochondria, then you have the cells know when they need to die and they need to regenerate and repair themselves and renew. So this is the basic wisdom of the shamans. We're energy beings. We're constantly exchanging energy with the environment, but not only energy, but information. Because if you remember 20 years ago, we thought that food was calories, energy. And today we know food is information. Food is what you eat will flip on the genes that create health and silence the ones that create disease, or they'll do the opposite. Food is information, energy is information, and we are information, wisdom beings. If you can upgrade the quality of the wisdom and the energy field around the body, we can upgrade the body, and we develop bodies that are disease-proof.
Yeah, I love that. So that brings me to a question about the human energy field is being bombarded by EMFs and radiation and electromagnetic frequencies, and everywhere, everybody's talking about 5G and 3G and 4G and all the Gs, right? Yeah. So with the human being contained within this energy body that is connected to all of the energy around us, and this could be a bigger question, but what can the human being do to protect their energy body right down to the mitochondria? For starters, like what would be a great place for people to start?
Well, the very first thing with the mitochondria is eliminate the white sugar, eliminate the sugar. Sugar is mitochondrial poison. The second thing is feed your mitochondria what they need. Give them the support that they need, the supplements. We used to get everything we needed from our food, but like you mentioned, today's soils are depleted. The beautiful veggies that we see in whole food markets are coming from depleted soils. They look pretty, but they don't have the nutrients, the phytonutrients that we need. So we need to supplement with certain things. The next is remove the heavy metals. Shamans were never exposed to heavy metals, to mercury. Unless you had a volcano in your backyard, you had no mercury exposure. And I remember as a kid, when the thermometer broke, I'd play with the mercury. Remember how it wiggled in your hand?
Yes.
And then I went to my dentist and she put it in my teeth. And mercury is a neurotoxin. It's a mitochondrial toxin. So detoxify. You got to get those heavy metals out with the supplements like selenium, mitochondrial support as well. And energetically, I think that what's most important for us is to learn that we have an energy field that is full of information. And when this information is not health promoting, it will become a disease trigger for whatever it is that runs in your family. And you can upgrade the quality of that information, of that energy, by releasing the stale chi, the stale, dense, gray energy that gathers in different parts of the field You can eliminate that. You eliminate it through the chakras, through the energy centers. But you need to do that in nature. And you need to do it with practices like breathing practices that you find in every culture that make you part of the in and out rhythm of life, exchanging breath, exchanging prana, exchanging chi, exchanging energy, renewing the energy field. In the same way that our cellular renewal gets shut down when your mitochondria is not working, your energetic renewal gets shut down if you're living in fight or flight. If you're living scared, if you're living disconnected, you don't recycle, you don't renew. And that's when we begin to get sick.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. And everyone knows what's been going on in the world right now, where people have been inside and not connected to nature. Not myself personally. But, I break all the laws and I go out into the park, Central Park, every day without a mask on. But that's another story. What's been happening over the past year and a half, especially, beyond what's been happening over the past 100 years, but in the past year and a half, there's been this call for people to stay inside, to remain inside, to hide themselves away, to not go outside. And I feel personally that is so detrimental to human health and to the human spirit. What are your thoughts on the shutting down of people or the disconnecting people from the outside world?
I think it's been fantastic for the outside world.
Yeah.
It hasn't been so good for humans. But even if we're locked in, you can, for example, we sprout. It's so easy to sprout. It's incredibly simple, incredibly easy. So make your own, have a kitchen garden. Grow your own food indoors. You can do some of it, a lot of it. Sprouts in particular during the winter. And detoxify. For example, I grow broccoli sprouts. Broccoli is one of the most incredible detoxifiers in the world. 5-day-old broccoli sprouts manufacture sulforaphane, which is an extraordinary brain detoxifier. So take this as an opportunity not to be locked in like a tiger in a cage, but to have a little kitchen garden, to get in shape, to detoxify. This crisis that we're living through is only a crisis because we're so full of chemicals. We've become toxic waste dumps. 60% of Americans are diabetic, and 70% are overweight. So at any other time in history, this would have been a little blip in evolution, and now it's this global health crisis. Get in shape, get your mind in shape, look for the opportunity. Don't think things will ever go back to normal. But you can become that new human that the indigenous prophecies speak about. They say that, and right around this time, that humanity would become extinct, the humanity that we know and have become so familiar with, which is the humanity that's obese, that's diabetic, that has metabolic syndrome, that at the age of 60 is on 5 different medications. And this humanity has died, and a new humanity is being born. And during these times of crisis, what Mother Earth does is she takes her foot off of the brake and she steps on the evolutionary accelerator, so that evolution is no longer following the laws of Newtonian physics, which is slow and incremental, but begins to follow the laws of quantum physics, which is quantum springs, quantum leaps, so that evolution happens now within generations, not in between generations. So you and I, it's all of us who are listening to this program and who are rediscovering our health and who are trying to get fitter and stronger, that will become that new human and that we've been waiting for. They're you and I. And this is a human that will be able to grow a new body, grow extraordinary states of health, turn this adversity into opportunity. That's the key.
I like that. And I also like your journey. I think I read, or maybe when I saw you at Omega years ago, you were in the process of regenerating your liver.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story. It's as a medical anthropologist, I study so-called primitive peoples, Aboriginal people. And by the way, we're all Aboriginal. We're all Earthlings. We all have the same mother, the Mother Earth. But I go to primitive places in the planet. I've spent time in the jungles in Indonesia and in Africa, in the savannas, and in Egypt, and in the Himalayas, and in South America, especially in the Amazon. And all along, I picked up unwanted hitchhikers, parasites, and viruses that were killing me. Like there are 5 kinds of hepatitis. I had all 5 of them. One of them,
Wow.
one of them active, and it just had destroyed my liver. So I went for a checkup, medical checkup, and because I was in a conference with my friend Greg Braden. I'm sure you know Greg
Yeah.
and Miguel Reese, and Greg was saying to me, Alberto, what's the matter? You're getting old, man. You're so tired all the time. I said, the years are weighing on me. And I went for a medical checkup, and they put me on a world map. And they said, these parasites you only get in North Africa. Have you been there? Yeah. And these you only get in Australia. And these are really common in Indonesia, in the jungles. When I went to visited the bee guard gatherers that climb these gigantic ladders to get bees nests. So my liver was shot. They told me to get in a liver transplant list. My heart was full of holes, and I had parasites in my brain.
Wow.
So I knew I could get a new liver, maybe a new heart, but where was I going to get a good brain? So I decided I had to grow a new body. I went to Western medicine to kill the parasites. And Western medicine is really good at killing things. And so I did kill the parasites, but I had a grayed out liver, a heart full of holes, and a brain full of dead parasites. And over the next 6 months, the liver repairs itself really quickly. I grew a new liver, grew a new heart, and repaired my brain. Because we all have the capability for doing this. The body ordinarily does it every 7 years. There's nobody in the planet older than 7 years old. Because you grow new bones, new heart tissue. The lining in your lungs is changed every 3 days. Your skin cells every 7 days. But generally, you grow a body that's a little bit more wrinkled and worn down, kind of like making a photocopy from a photocopy from a photocopy. It gets a little fuzzy around the edges, and the wrinkles don't go away as easily. But I had to go back to the first copy. I had to hack my genetic code to get into password protected regions where I could grow the next version of me from the original. And we all have the capability of doing this. The reason we don't is that we're so toxic that the body will not allow you to go back into these regions in your DNA code that are so ancient and so password protected. You have to detoxify, you have to work with the energy field, and you have to upgrade your brain. You have to break out of the predatory brain, the Neanderthal brain that lives in scarcity and in fear, and come up to the brain that's the brain of love and of communion and empathy. So instead of growing a new body in 7 years, I did it in 7 months.
Mm.
And my most recent book is called Grow a New Body. How do we use foods and the natural substances, the plant medicines to go not only to repair, which is what Western medicine is about, but to regenerate. How do we regenerate? Every organ in the body has stem cells in it that if you can wake them up, they will regenerate that organ. And then beyond that, you're going to rejuvenate. And I'll tell you what makes this possible. It's because we're taking part in an experiment in biology. In that there are only 3 species in the planet that don't have a death program in their DNA. And that's humans, orcas, whales, and dolphins. Every other species has a death program. When the female is no longer able to reproduce, nature eliminates her. So there are no grandmothers in nature. There are none. Menopause doesn't exist in nature. But humans, orcas, and whales, the ones that have the biggest brain to body weight ratio, don't have a death program in our DNA. We're programmed for immortality. We need to be able to access these regions in the brain that have to do with what you eat, how you love, how you forgive, how you detoxify, and how you upgrade the field. So that's what I had to do. For me, it wasn't research, it was necessity.
Yeah. Well, like as the shaman, I think the shaman's journey is that you're healing yourself first. So that's how I got started on my journey 25 years ago, was with thyroid disease, and Western medicine said, take the thyroid out, or destroy the thyroid. And every cell in my body said, don't destroy the thyroid.
You don't need that little gland up there, that master gland that regulates everything, really.
Right? So that's the shaman's journey. You something's happening within the energy body. You tap into the wisdom that's already there. You heal it with every part of your being, and you go on to teach, which is what you're doing with your programs. I know that you have the Light Body School and many other programs, and you're teaching this wisdom to new generations, which is wonderful, because this is the kind of information that's needed now more than ever.
And this used to be exotic stuff, but now we're teaming up with researchers at Harvard. We're working with people at leading scientific institutions in Europe to combine this ancient wisdom with modern medicine before modern medicine kills us. We have 155,000 different disease diagnoses in the West, 155,000 illnesses, which are really, these are diagnoses. They're not really diagnoses. They're just a description of symptoms.
That's right.
Because they don't tell you how to repair it. So we're digging ourselves deeper and deeper into this hole and into being wedded to the pharmaceuticals. We're in the age of Pharmageddon. When I was a medical anthropologist in the Amazon, I was actually funded by big Swiss pharma. At the beginning, they wanted to discover the next big cancer cure or heart disease cure or dementia cure. And the Amazon is nature's pharmacy. So I went to backwater villages that had never seen a light-skinned person before. And I came back 3 months later empty-handed, because there's no cancer, there's no heart disease, there's no dementia in Aboriginal peoples. These are the illnesses that we're dying from, but this is the illness of civilization, of the West. And today, if you live to be 85 years old, you have a 50% risk of having diagnosable Alzheimer's. Not just forgetting where your keys are, but forgetting your children's names. This doesn't happen in traditional shamanic societies, because people are connected to nature, they're keeping their energy fields upgraded, they're in communion, they forgive easily, they are natural beings.
It's interesting. I've had this conversation with my husband often, and we met you. My husband's Cuban, and you're a Cuban fellow, and I know you guys get along. But I've had this conversation with my husband often, that I feel like every single disease, and you mentioned 150,000 of them, or however, I think they're all just made up names to sell medication, to sell medicine. And I feel that it's just simply a human body that's out of balance. And it'll manifest in either this way or that way, but it's the human body showing that it's out of balance.
Nice.
Either, on the physical, the emotional, the energetic, the spiritual, it's just out of balance. But they're creating all of these different names to sell something, sell a medication.
Well, this happened actually as a result of really bad medical practice. There were a lot of people coming from medical schools in little islands in the Pacific or in the Caribbean, and trying to practice medicine in the U.S. So they standardized it. They said this condition has to be treated with this medication, pharmaceutically or surgically. Not go and do more exercise, not change your diet because doctors are not trained in diet. So this was done to improve the quality of care. And this is called the standard of care. And if you don't treat this condition with this medication, you'll get sued. So it's really very, very recipe based. And it's not focused on how you eat. It's not focused on healing the emotions. For the shamans, unhealed trauma, unhealed emotions are the cause of all disease. Imbalance, like you pointed out. Where's the imbalance? Let's treat the cause and not the symptom. Today, I encourage people to turn their kitchen into their laboratories to manufacture their own medicine, their own postbiotics, to work with some of the skills that our grandmothers had, where they could grow their food was their medicine. Hippocrates said that, make your food your medicine. And today we have to do it because we're taking part in an experiment that we didn't sign up for, which is an experiment basically in genetic manipulation, that with the GMO foods, with glyphosate. We're taking part in an experiment that is being forced upon us, and the pharmaceutical experiment as well. So today, returning to nature is absolutely essential.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that you used to have trekking expeditions, speaking of getting out in nature, to Peru. Has that been put on hold since COVID came to town?
Yep. You know what the shamans are doing? They're going back into nature. They're saying, let's get out of the city. Let's go drink water from that river that's still clean and grow some food ourselves. And we'll come back when this blows over. And so we're on hold like everyone else. But I tell my students, say, look, there's another experiment you can take part in, which is that experiment where n is equal to 1. Where n in an experiment is the number of people in a study, and to do good science, you want to have a big number of people in your research. But if we wait for the science, it's going to be too late. Today, the experiment is n is equal to 1. My experiment is called Alberto. And if you don't do the experiment in creating health and creating longevity and using the ancient tools, and there's some really good medical tools as well, but you use them wisely. You exercise, you sleep, you forgive, you heal your emotions. If you don't take part in the experiment, guess what? You get to be part of the control group. And the control group is the rest of sick humanity. And it's so urgent today.
It is so urgent, is correct. So I know that you have a lot of books. And, my audience is a combination of people that are health and wellness enthusiasts as well as health and wellness practitioners. So what would you recommend out of all of your books? Where would you say people start to gain some of the insight and the wisdom and the knowledge and beauty that you share? What would be a great place for them to start?
People think of shamans as men and women that, have rattles and they shake rattles, and they have feathers and they shake feathers. They do that too. But shamans were the first neuroscientists. They understood that we're all part of this quantum field that is the invisible world, and that our energy body is who we will be in between incarnations. And they became masters at working with the invisible world, with the quantum field. So I encourage people to discover your energy beingness. I asked an old medicine woman one time, what's with all of this shamanic teaching? There's so much of it. And she said to me, Alberto, the purpose of the shamanic teaching is to learn how to get out of this life alive, to take your consciousness with you, when you go into the spirit world and when you become an energy being. Learn how to do that today. Discover how to practice lucid dreaming. Dreams are so important. Today we've forgotten how to dream and we don't remember our dreams. So and then in terms of a book, I would recommend my book, Grow a New Body. It brings together the cutting edge science and the nutrition and the ancient shamanic practice to heal the emotions, to heal the trauma that we have stored in our field. Because we're all the children and grandchildren of war. And this trauma is communicated, goes through the placental barrier when we are in our mother's womb. Yeah, and the stress hormones also go through the placental barrier, the cortisol, the adrenaline, and we come wired for fear. We're born into fear. And we need to repair that and to heal that. So Grow a New Body. And I also have a new oracle card set called the Shaman's Dream Oracle that I did with Colette Barron-Reed. And that's a great way to work with the dream time, with connecting with the archetypal powers and energies that are nature, that are the invisible part of nature. People ask me, how do I connect to nature? Should I go for a walk in Central Park? Yes. And connect with the invisible part of nature, with the field that we're all a part of.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to put all of that into the show notes so people can get some of your wisdom. It's interesting that you said that one of the elders, or I think it was one of the grandmothers you said, take your consciousness with you. And it's so interesting that so many people are suffering. Like you said, 50% of the population, by the time they become elders, have lost their mind, right? Or their consciousness. So they're not able to take their consciousness with them at that point because they're forgetting here.
Yeah, they can't take their consciousness out of bed in the morning.
No.
Much less anywhere beyond. And that's what's happened to the American mind.
Yeah, it's disappearing.
Because it begins 30 years earlier, not at the age of 85, it begins 30 years earlier with how you handle stress, with how you forgive, with how you eat, with the cooking oils that you use, with the vitamin D3 intake that you have. And, we've never worked indoors like we do now. We used to be out in the sun. And if you don't get your vitamin D, which is not a vitamin, it's a hormone, really, your immunity goes down and your systems don't regulate and you don't repair properly. You don't sleep properly. So we have to recraft our lifestyles. And not just do the latest, newest intervention that you think will create health. It's lifestyle driven. And bring the sacred into your life. You have to become a sacred being by being in communion with the sacred. So there's no longer a separation between you and the Divine Mother, the earth, or the heavens.
I like that. And then also, I know that you have online programs, and everybody's online these days. And I think it would be real wise for people to go to your online classes and take some classes. What would you recommend?
Thank you, Andrea. Well, what I do today is I train modern shamans. I train men and women to work with the invisible world, knowing that it's the invisible world, that's the source of the visible world. And to do that with a solid scientific basis as well. So our training program is a 6-month online training program where you learn the ancient skills for clearing the energy field from these toxic imprints that predispose you to getting sick, that allow you to work with intrusive energies that don't belong to you. That person that you used to love, now that feels that you betrayed them, those negative energies, that kind of psychic attack that so many of us have experienced is totally toxic. How do we remove these energies that don't belong to us? I had one of our students brought her little girl to see me, beautiful 10-year-old, who was on medication, hyperactive, was not communicating other than by hitting other children, and a real behavior problem on 3 different kinds of meds. She brought her little girl to see me, and my student's husband, the little girl's father, committed suicide when the daughter was 2 years old. And she found him, and she kept going, "Daddy, Daddy, wake up, Daddy." And Daddy hated his life, but he loved his little girl. So Daddy became attached to the little girl, Daddy's spirit. So 10 years later, you have this spirit entity that's very loving, that's her father, but that's very toxic, influencing this girl's behavior. And there's no amount of psych meds and ADHD meds and psychotherapy that will deal with an intrusive energy or entity, which are most often relatives that didn't die with closure. So when she walked into my office, the little girl looked at me and she turned around. My office was in LA at that time, ran across Santa Monica Boulevard into Starbucks shaking, because she intuited that she was going to lose her daddy again. So it took 2 or 3 sessions when finally she came into my office, and we took Daddy out of her field and helped Daddy go back home to the spirit world consciously to heal. And the minute that we did that, the little girl came and sat on my lap and hugged me, and then she could go through the mourning of losing her dad and the grief and the recovery. And within 3 months, she was off the meds and reintegrated back into the regular classroom. There's so much of this that we don't even consider real in our psychology or in our medicine. So this is part of the shaman's training. How do you do us? So many people today are suffering from soul loss. How do we help someone recover a lost soul part that fled as a result of trauma? So these are the shamanic practices that we combine with cutting-edge nutrition. You know, my book, Power Up Your Brain, I co-authored with David Perlmutter. I'm sure you know his book on grain brain. So we look at how your energetic reality and your psychological and your nutritional create health. And that's what we train coaches that can help loved ones and their patients and clients to create extraordinary health and be part of this experiment that we're all taking part in a conscious way.
You're doing great work in the world, Alberto. I'm really happy to be on the planet at this time with you in it.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much for the beautiful work you do, and let's become that human that we've all been waiting for.
Yeah. So can you quickly tell people where to find you? Well, you have a website address?
Our website is the4winds.com, the4winds.com, or you can look me up under my name and my website will pop up. Come and visit. We have a lot of free resources in our website. We're interested in changing the world by training one healer at a time. And you can be part of that transformation.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, your wisdom, and your good spirit, Alberto. You're a good egg.
Thank you so much. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Bye. So what do you think about that conversation? I loved how Alberto talked about becoming a sacred being. Like you have to reconnect to the earth and to the heavens. And I think that this is a huge missing component from our modern human experience. And if we want to become the powerful and amazing creatures that we are, we need to reconnect. Whether you do it through food or meditation or drumming or shamanism or music or connection, I believe that this is of the utmost importance for humans to make it through this most challenging time in human history. I know that you can do it. Alberto did it. He grew a new liver and a new brain. I did it. I healed my thyroid disease naturally, and I'm living happily and healthfully in a human body on planet Earth. I know lots of folks that have become the best versions of themselves. So don't let anything get in your way. Not the government, not your employer, not the crazies and the naysayers. we all know who they are. They'll stand on your corner with a picket sign telling you not to eat well and not to take care of yourself, right? We all know those people. Maybe don't let those people in your life. You are an amazing creature. You are a human being. And I believe that you are much more powerful than you have been led to believe. Do you think that you have the power to grow a new organ, to heal a disease? Do you think that you can do that? I'd love to hear from you. So keep coming back, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye, everybody. Big thanks and a whole lot of love for tuning in today. All we have in life is time, and I am honored that you spent your time with me. If you are inspired and want to learn more, head on over to www.andreabeeman.com and sign up to receive updates about reclaiming your health and your happiness in the most delicious and easy ways.